Great stuff. Well, actually, for one last time, I'm going to hand over to Zoe. Zoe Foreman, that is. I know we've got another Zoe on the panel. So Zoe.
Hi, everybody. Yep, this is my last official one, but I'm handing over to Lena, who will capably take over and keep James and Charlie in check going forward. So I'm just going to run through some housekeeping slides for you. Next slide, please. So first of all, you will have noticed that this meeting has been recorded. So this is available and will be available on demand afterwards. If anybody doesn't want to participate live, please drop out and send us an email, and you can get the recording later on. Next slide, please. A few house rules. These are the same, but we do go through them. So please, no self-promotion or pitching allowed in any of the user groups. Only contact people outside of the group with their consent. So that includes the panelists as well as James, Charlie, Lena, and myself. And if user groups share any case studies today and in what's coming ahead, please do ask their permission if you want to review it, share it, or share it with others. Just the simple rules. Next slide, please. So I think James was just saying we've got over 200 members of the chapter. So if you have some co-workers and they're not already members, please send them the link and ask them to join our chapter. Certainly across, if you've got colleagues that work outside of the UK, anywhere across the EMEA region, it'll be great to have people. Simple, use your account that's associated with your Marketo instance. And then once you're joined, you'll get updates of when the upcoming webinars are, so you won't miss out on anything else. Next slide, please. And for those that are in London or can get to London easily, there is a mini summit happening on the 10th of July. It's at Magazine House. This is where Anticon was or is. So it's over next to the O2. And it's a one-day summit. It's not the 3-day summit that you get in Vegas, but the beauty is it's local and it's free. So if you haven't registered for it, go online and register your interest for that. There may be a wait list, but that's quite fluid. People are going on the wait list and then coming out, but please have a look at that and hopefully see some familiar faces there. Okay, I'm now going to pass over to James, who's going to introduce our panelists for today and take it away from there. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much, Zoe. And we're going to miss you as our co-host, of course.
Thank you.
And excited for your new adventure, joining the Adobe team. So very exciting. Right, so we have a absolutely packed panel today. We had incredible uptake of the people who wanted to share their views and thoughts with you across the different products and areas that we've been working on. And of course, this is the Marketo User Group. And so we came up with a subject around, do we build it? Do we buy it? Or have we actually already got it? And this kind of started with this concept around all of the capabilities that Adobe are pumping into Marketo Engage as a platform and whether they are fit for purpose for your business or not, right? So how do we make sensible decisions around investments? And how do we importantly consider what is our use case? How do we apply it? Where can we get value from our existing spend? And this is, of course, a topic that is hot on everybody's lips, right? How do we do more with less? How do we get more value from what we're already spending? And so this is where this topic has come from. So today we're joined by a few panelists. We've got Jackie Lenihan, who's the Kainos Director of Marketing Operations. So welcome, Jackie.
Thanks, James. Hi, everybody.
We've got Zoe Cratchley, who's the Marketing Data and Technologies Manager at Renishaw. So welcome, Zoe.
Thanks, James. Good afternoon, everyone.
We've also got Neil Sa here on the call, who's Principal Global Digital Marketing at Workday. So welcome, Neil.
Thank you, James, and good afternoon.
And I know we've got Harjeet, who's the Senior Director of Marketing and Demand Gen Operations at Finastra, running a few minutes late. at his marketing offsite today, and we squeezed this in to his agenda. So I'm sure he'll pop on the screen when he's ready to join us. So let's get started. We're going to jump straight into questions, and we're going to kick off with this thought about doing more with less, and how do we actually start to consider, how do we maximize our technology stack? Where do we go from here? And I'm going to kick off with Jackie. I'll put you in the hot seat first. And I'd like to ask you if there's maybe a mistake that you've had or experienced as a team, particularly around this kind of build or buy decision, and kind of what did you learn from it? What was the kind of findings?
Sure. So I wouldn't say a mistake, but definitely a learning curve was recently we decided to buy a new platform and replace an existing one. We did a lot of testing on the new platform. We did internal testing, and then we moved to enablement. So we did a lot of adoption guidance. We invested heavily in making sure that the new platform was going to be used properly and adopted across all of our marketing teams. And then we started to actually go out to try and drive excitement about the new platform. So we did a lot of comms about the new functionality that they were going to get with this new platform. And really everybody was incredibly enthusiastic, which was great for us. So we opened up with a lunch and learn, and everyone started to use the platform, and we experienced a major blip in that some people couldn't access the platform. And we hadn't actually done as much external testing across people with different IPs. We hadn't engaged systems because we hadn't heard of these issues before with other companies that were using the platform that we were procuring. So my advice is always test. Really, if you're going to bring on something and you've gone to the bother of building the business case, you went out, you have encouraged the teams to use it, and you've got their awareness that they're moving to this new platform and their excitement, because we were selling all the benefits of this new platform, and then we had to revert to the old one. Now we've only reverted to the old one for a period of time, so we are able to still use it, but that upheaval and that disruption can really start that experience with the new platform in quite a negative way. So I would say definitely test. We are really thorough in Kainos with that, but we just hadn't gone to the nth degree. So I would say fully engage all aspects and with multiple people, externally, internally, to really get the most out of it before you launch anything.
Great feedback and great recommendations. I think, we often get stuck in our own little bubble, right? And testing the things that work for us and forget that actually if you take a completely fresh vanilla device outside of your network, you can test stuff and see how does it react. I always remember having a marketing director years ago who every email you'd send her as a preview, there would be something, and it was always her. It's always her browser, and she would always find it, and you'd send it to everybody else, but it needed to be fixed. It needed to be ironed out because it would be that one person, right? And I think, again, we've all had those experiences as well, where that one individual may have a challenge with their device or technology, and therefore we get some interesting feedback. But yeah, thank you very much for that. I'm going to go to Neil next. I'm going to ask you this question, kind of really thinking about getting return on investment out of Martech, right? It's the topic that never ends, right? The question that we get every single year: how do we justify the spend that we put into technology? And I'm interested to understand, how do you balance that long-term scalability versus that short-term ROI, getting the proof of concept, to Jackie's point, over the line and proven that it's a great decision? How do you tackle that?
Yeah, often we're quite early adopters when it comes to platforms and innovation. So we're working hand in hand with our platform partners. So what's incredibly important is defining that business goal, because what you want to be able to do is understand what we're working towards, but also as an early adopter, we need to recognize that some of this stuff is like an organism. It's right at that initial stage of emerging. And what might be on paper may not actually be able to specifically deliver to what you're looking for. So it's iterating and it's developing. So road mapping. In doing so, then what you're doing is creating a really strong business case and design. But you're also then bringing in a whole bunch of folks who are not just marketing or technology. They could be sales, which is about speed, or IT about integration, and bring them up front and early into the process. You'll get stronger buy-in. So then what you're able to do is understand the design, establish the key stakeholders who can help with enabling this program. And then really from a scale perspective, starting small can often be a good test case. And I completely agree with Jackie, having a really clear test and learn approach. So working out what that small pilot or MVP is, and then showing that value fast to build that momentum and credibility is super important. So defining that success up front, tied with adoption into outcomes, is kind of how we work. And what you initially design at the start can easily be something evolved and different when you get to the point of piloting it.
Yeah, and again, great viewpoint there, because I think one of these challenges for a lot of organizations, we see it right now with AI. I had to get it in there first. Come on, I get a gold star for that, I'm sure. Is again those proof of concepts, right? Start small. You don't have to build the multi-million pound projects that are rolling out AI across your business. You can start with micro enhancements to how you do stuff. And I obviously, everybody who's on the call, please feel free to add your questions into the Q&A. There's time for those. I know we're only 2 in. I've got lots more. But it's definitely the opportunity for you guys as attendees to this session as well to ask any questions that you might have on the theme of doing more with less, or do you build it? Do you buy it? Have you already got it? So again, keep that in mind when you're sharing your questions as well. And I'm going to throw our resident champ in the deep end here. We're going to lose one champ of Zoe Foreman. So this is for Charlie. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to ask you a question around how do you assess whether you should be building something or buying something in a Martech stack? Is there any frameworks or criteria that you would use to guide maybe the people on the call in terms of where to begin? We've talked about this concept around starting with a proof case, starting with a solid business case that will, of course, do this forever, right? So what is your advice?
I should always start by having a look at, do we have something already that does the job? Does it sort of fit the purpose? Do I need to build what keeps me awake at night personally? I'm not sure if the panel feels the same. Technical debt for the future, technical debt. Those shelfware platforms that you buy, you may adopt and use for a few months and then slowly sort of just wane away and just sit there in your budget line year after year after year and not get used. The other thing I think about is the knowledge in the teams. If you're building something internally, either from scratch or you're changing a platform to suit and fit your needs, but customizing it in a totally different way, what happens if that person leaves? Do you have the SOPs or the documentation and the knowledge within the rest of the team to actually pick up what they know and then either fix something for the future or continue to develop it? So those sort of 2 considerations are always the ones that I have first in mind. Whenever, like Neil said, whenever I'm working with stakeholders and partners and they come to me with a problem that requires either to build it or to buy something new, those are the sort of considerations that I always consider. And I don't know if anyone else on the panel has sort of either the same feelings or the same pieces of advice or frameworks or something new and different.
I totally agree. I just put in the chat, I think whenever you get these demos of these shiny new platforms, it's all bells and whistles. It's like, right, you can just set this up and this is going to solve all your problems on budget, on resource. This is going to scale your marketing efforts. but that does not exist. You're being sold a lemon, as I would say. You need people behind it. You need enablement, you need adoption, you need integrations. It's not just a plug and play solution. And sometimes I think providers try to sell it in that way, but you cannot forget about those aspects in order for it to succeed.
Can I throw in, I'm not sure if anyone knows a guy called Scott Brinker. Every year for the past few years, he has this Martech map. And on the map now, it's the logos of every single technology provider is so small because there are thousands of pieces of technology available to all of us to either buy or bring in and adapt and change and customize. And the sort of level of expertise and knowledge in that is, astonishing. It's very difficult to find people that can know that particular piece of technology and then adapt it or support it for the future. So yeah, 100% agree with you on that one, Jackie.
So I've just thrown the link into that study, actually. So I was just reading it the other day, 100 times larger than 2011 when he started, which is 15,384 pieces of technology that are identified and added to that diagram. And of course, there's more, right? There's the peripherals as well. And I think it's always really interesting. And one of the questions that I always have at the top of my mind is, at which point do we start to consolidate? Where is the overlap? Because you've got SAP capabilities in websites these days and CMSs, as well as marketing automation tools, as well as independent tools. You've got webinar tools now embedded in Marketo, for example, as a platform. Plus, you've now got Teams that does webinars, Google Meet that does webinars, Zoom that does webinars. So again, where do you begin, right? And I think we've got so many platforms. And being of the age that I am, I remember Jabber, and Jabber being this kind of one place for all your instant messaging across your AOLs and your Yahoos and your, I can show my age now, but ultimately, I think we're getting to that point again. We need that consolidated view and kind of centralization of all the noise that we have across multiple channels. And I'm sure pretty much everybody on this call is involved in a Slack group, as well as a Teams chat, as well as maybe a WhatsApp group. And again, it's like, where am I looking? Constantly, I'm getting barraged by messages and notifications. So I always think this is something in the back of my mind. And Zoe, I'm going to come to you now, because I know you've recently moved to interactive webinars within Marketo. And I'm really curious to hear a bit more about your experience in that shift. What did you learn? What were some of the things that you've kind of found out as you've gone through that process?
Yeah, sure. And interesting enough, when you were talking about sort of looking at your technology and trying to sort of minimize the amount that you have, we also find that as being a global organization, within your own company, you could sometimes have 2-3 tools doing the same thing. So yeah, it's really important to take a step back and look at that stack as a whole and make sure you're consolidating and getting the most out of them. So yeah, in that line, we knew Marketo was bringing out the interactive webinars. We were really keen to have a look. We tried to get sort of early access, which they did give us, but unfortunately, timing wise for us as a team, we couldn't take full advantage of that. However, we've just sort of gone for it in the last sort of 3 months. So we sort of thought, well, we checked, we did a lot of research against Marketo interactive webinars, the functionality that could offer us against our current provider. We made sure we brought the users along with us for the journey, because us as a technology team, we don't actually use the webinar as such. So it's more important that they felt confident and comfortable using it. And actually, I think it went a bit more smoothly than we thought it would, if I'm honest. So as to date, we've only actually done 4 webinars through it. 3 were within one team, so that helped as well. And they were very successful. So they didn't have anyone dropping off. So they knew, obviously, the technology was working. They didn't have many people complaining that they couldn't get in. And these webinars are very highly... So there's a lot of registrants for them. So, you're talking 600-700 people that register and then obviously come on live. I think, it's sort of in the realms of about 500. So we put a lot of time up front and a huge amount of effort into testing it. So we first created a webinar within interactive webinars to sort of showcase what it looked like for people. So we had a sort of small internal team, then we opened it up to our wider business. So we really brought them into the tool sort of straight away. In the background, we did more of the programs, but we sort of created them as templates that then could be cloned. So that again helped with the speed of getting it out there. And that actually was really simple in Marketo. Obviously, using Marketo every day and knowing the programs, that bit of it was really, really easy. And the Adobe Connect that powers the Marketo interactive webinars seems quite stable as well. Yeah, it was quite apparent there wasn't anything we were going to miss from the old platform. In fact, there were some positives that it worked on our network, whereas we couldn't get our old one to work on the network. It was obviously included in our existing Marketo package, which was really good as well because there's no additional cost. So we had a save in there. And all the emails are managed in Marketo, so the tokens and some of the users weren't that comfortable using tokens. But again, you know, we sort of reassured them, we sort of built it in advance for them. And that worked really well as well. And yeah, so the first sort of 3 were very, very successful. The third one was a bit of a smaller one. So that was sort of good to test as well. And also brought with it some more questions from the users.
It's fantastic. And I love your turnout rate, because I don't know about everybody else on this call, but webinars at the moment are incredibly difficult to get people live on the call, right? So that's some incredible turnout rate as well, which is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. So Jackie, I'm going to come back to you and just thinking about that, right? So Zoe, you've said you've had this cost saving, which is always great, right? Every business loves a cost saving. Every marketing team that are getting squeezed on budget year in, year out, or again, do more with less, do less with more, or whatever the phrase is that around your organization. How do you justify those investments? You mentioned you've made a recent investment, and how do you get that over the line, especially when budgets are scrutinized or really restricted, right? And in the current market conditions, I think for everybody, it's become very difficult to get any new spend through the organization.
Yeah, I think that's the difficulty, and that's why it's quite ironic, because when budgets are shrinking, it's because growth is declining, and that's when you need to invest in marketing technology to actually help support that bounce back. So I think the first thing, and we're in the middle of building a business case at the minute for Marketo Measure, which is going really well. But we are, starting that conversation with sales. So where do they think the growth is going to come from? Is it going to come from net new business, or is it going to come from existing customers and renewals? Having that alignment with sales is key, because you're going then with this joint view of, we think this is the tool for us, and why, and where they feel it can add value then in the whole buying cycle. The second thing then is to really try to simplify that message for C-suite. So our marketing structure goes up to the CFO. And so the CFO needs to understand in a language that he's used to why we would want to invest in something. It's so that we can pivot the budgets. It's going to return X. It's going to attract more, we can better spend our money. That's going to help revenue. So you need to justify that in a language that really translates for him or her. So those mutual benefits are really key. And then the third thing is, we have started, Laura Brazil, who's on the call, who leads our marketing tech strategy at Kainos, and I have worked with sales to look at a marketing and technology steerco, where we're taking a full audit and a full review of all of our technology systems. There are some where they do the same thing, and some are adopted more than others. So that justification to the CFO has worked really well, in that we've said, well, we can actually close off 4 or 5 platforms that have some nice to have technology, but we can live without it. and those contracts come to an end on this date, and that's going to save you X amount of money. And we can then pivot that into something like Marketo Measure, where we can actually see what our return on investment is, what channels are gaining those customers, whether it's through new leads, whether it's through existing customers as well. And that's really worked to actually get that view and that buy-in for the platform, especially when our budgets have remained flat on last year. So hopefully those are some useful tips that people can use.
Absolutely, and I think there's some great ideas there just to take some stuff back to the business. And I think one of the pieces that is often difficult, right? And I think you've given some signposts to it there, is what overlap do we have? How do we understand what overlap we've got? Because as Neil's earlier comment stated, you get all these shiny features coming in the platform, or the lemon, as you called it. Is, again, you've got some overlap, but is it fit for purpose? And I think we always buy technology with the ambition of doing something grand with it, but actually we probably don't always use 100%, right? And I've been in software sales a very long time ago, and we used to say people would pay for 20% because the rest of the 80% would just sit there on the shelf. And it's often hard to get them to use the full 100% because the use case is only limited, right? And I think, again, this is one of the things we need to think about, is how do you drive adoption of the tool you've already got? How do you explore every possibility? And for those of you who've been around Marketo for a long time, if you remember predictive content or web personalization, I'd love to see a show of hands of who's ever used them, because most people have never used them. But again, exploring those proof of concepts are definitely pretty tough, right? Again, how do you understand who and how you're going to use those pieces of technology within the platform before you go and buy anything else as well? So cracking on with our questions then, Charlie, for you, I've got a question specifically around kind of the rise of AI, low code, no code tools. And in this concept of buy or build, I'm really curious to understand, what is your thought on, does that start to blur the lines in terms of how we approach, do I go and buy something or do I build it? Because, as we sit and watch new things come to market, and we sit there and go, well, I could build that. How do you feel about that? How are you approaching that and advising on it as well?
I think, or I know I've certainly found that low-code tools, the easier that vendors are making, software providers in particular, are making those tools accessible for us to be able to use and customize and work at speed by bringing in new drag and drop capabilities. I know, for example, with Adobe, they announced this year at Summit in Vegas, the ability to start to build campaigns in a canvas within Marketo, a little bit like HubSpot has. It just means that we can move at speed without needing the technical intricacies or experience of being able to build out sort of complex multi-stage campaigns. It's not necessarily about dumbing down, but the low-code building is making so many platforms more accessible to a lot more campaign marketers in particular. So the technicality, it used to be that you needed either HTML, CSS, Python experience, SQL experience even to use these sort of complex tools at scale. But now it's getting easier and easier to use. AI, so we go, second time we've mentioned it on this in this panel conversation, is also at the other end. You've got low code at one end, AI at the other, also driving a lot of ease of use and speed to market when it comes to go-to-market motions as well. So, as well as using AI for coding or even agents to develop whole campaigns at speed, now is the easiest time to be able to adopt something new when you are buying it into a business. And those sort of onboarding and adoption at times. In my experience, it used to be you're looking at sort of 6 to 9 months in order to get a piece of software adopted within a business. Now you're really looking at weeks, days, a lot of them.
Yeah, and again, the landscape keeps changing, right? And I think the one thing I keep hearing across marketing teams at the moment is it seems to be shifting daily at the moment. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to know what to focus on that's new, right? New and shiny. And we as marketing technology folks love a new shiny tool. And so I'm going to actually turn to Neil now and ask, how do we future-proof our Martech stack? Or, you mentioned that you guys get really involved in terms of being future-thinking, innovative, kind of testing and learning. How are you guys approaching that? Or how would you recommend that people think about that future-proofing of your tech stack?
Yeah, I guess we'll have technologies that we're dependent on that might be legacy platforms, but we're still using it. I'm not sure we totally avoid sunsetting everything to replace it. So what we try to do is not necessarily hard code customizations, but think about open APIs, ways in which we can integrate our piece of tech, which I imagine a lot of businesses go through. Another part is documentation. So it's almost as important as the tech itself. So we want to be able to swap tools in and out without being dependent totally on one single platform. We definitely audit our stack a lot. And we measure back to whether it's clearly defining value or driving value. That's super important for us. The other thing that possibly, and it's not necessarily something that's pertaining to us, but certainly for some other businesses and people I've worked with in the past, is where you're resource ready to drive it forward. So is it onshore or offshore? Certainly can play a big role in terms of not only adoption, but then generally how it moves forward. And something that's probably quite emerging in conversations, but yeah, it's definitely a key consideration too.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful, right? And I think one of the incredible pieces I'm sure we are all seeing, again, bringing it back to the context of the Marketo User Group that we're all here part of, is there are so many innovations coming in the Marketo platform and so fast that it's very hard sometimes to keep up with them all and say, well, what is relevant to me, right? This new things come up, and there's some great chat going on around email templates, which we'll come to as well. Again, those innovations, those shifts, those changes, whilst they are incredibly difficult sometimes to swallow and be prepared for, as you mentioned, Neil, and have the capacity to handle. I think, again, it's, choosing which ones to, pick your fight, basically, right? It's which one do I start with? Where am I going to get most value? And I think often that's quite hard to see. And again, I'll use Jackie's words from the beginning, which is try and take yourself outside of your little world and say, looking in, will that make my experience better? Will it change what I'm doing? And can that help my customers get a better experience across the board? So thank you for that. And Zoe, I want to kind of come to you thinking about this piece around, we've talked a little bit about you using interactive webinars as the integrated and native capability in Marketo. How are you observing the innovations that are put into the platform around interactive webinars versus potentially what the third-party tools may already do or may have extra bells and whistles? And how did you kind of assess that to say, we don't really need that, or we do need that? How have you approached that?
So I think we've kind of taken the approach that although our webinars are well received and we have a lot of people, we don't do masses and masses of webinars throughout the year. I think we kind of take a step back and think, well, actually, we could go with this provider with all the bells and whistles and great stuff. We can do everything, but actually, it's not really needed. And a lot of it we can do either, we look at the technology stack as a whole and whether we can do that somewhere else with something we already have got, even though maybe the Marketo Interactive is limited, or actually we decide we don't even use it, it's not worth that sort of cost. And also Marketo, Adobe, they seem to be putting a lot of effort into the webinars, well, in particular Marketo, but the webinars as well. So, you know, there's new stuff coming along that we are going to be able to utilize in the future. One of it being the AI elements. So, you know, that they, you know, when we switch that on, we'll be able to do what, you know, other providers can do at no extra cost. So, you know, it'll look at the webinar, look at those points that people are interacting with, and then it'll create little snippets for you. So it will generate that content for you to use in social media posts. So, you know, I think we're quite comfortable in, you know, staying with Marketo webinars, and, you know, we know they are developing it as well. So that's, you know, we know that's on their roadmap.
Incredible. Yeah. And I think, again, that switch over is often the hardest part, right? Of moving from one platform to another. It's the hassle, it's the team education, as you mentioned. And I know you're working in a global team rolling out to multiple regions, which again is challenging in itself, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And, you know, we have some people that used to use the old platform, but don't use Marketo very much. So that in its own was a challenge. So, you know, we've had to do some training. You know, we've made sure we've got a user guide in place to help people get more comfortable with it. And also you've got to look at the licenses. So the impact, people may need more licenses on Marketo. And obviously there's some restrictions as well. So we know that if you want to do a Marketo interactive webinar, you know, those people are going into Marketo when they register. So, you know, that might not be appropriate in all cases. So it's just those sort of things to evaluate and bear in mind, really.
Absolutely. And actually, one of my favorite features of interactive webinars, actually I have a couple. One is the dashboards, the engagement dashboards. So being able to see how long people engage and interact throughout the webinar and who is the most engaged. But actually all of the actions you get in flow steps are absolutely incredible. How many minutes did someone watch? How long were they engaged for? And you can score them differently. You can follow up with them. You can trigger off activity, and you can even take poll responses and fire off emails directly. So, hey, you want to learn more about this product or feature we've been talking about? Yes. Then once the webinar wraps up, you've got a delay step. You send your email off afterwards. Super cool, right? Because again, then marketing isn't just focused on running a webinar or supporting the webinar. It is actually, okay, what do we do then with that intelligence out the back of it? And I think for me, that's the real value of bringing in interactive webinars versus a third-party tool where the data sits elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, we've yet to exploit that. So we've set ours up quite simply to start with. But yeah, we're really keen to get to that stage and utilize that power of Marketo as well. So.
Brilliant. I'm conscious of time. We've got still some questions to go. If you've got any questions that you would like the panelists to answer, please throw them into the chat or the Q&A, wherever you're most comfortable, and we'll get to them in just a second. I'm going to jump back to Jackie, just to kind of, I'm still whizzing around in my head, and I know there's some chat going on there, again, talking about CSMs, QBRs, roadmap features. How are you keeping an eye on what's coming down the line? Or have you got stuff in your sites that you're considering, which then kind of fill in some of those Martech capability gaps? Or is there just some massive gaps that you just can't fill or can't find the right fit for, based on the kind of analysis and research that you've been doing?
Yeah, I think given where we're at with the economy and the situation in the world right now, this kind of, it is going to be this do more with less. Like, we're not going to bounce back out of this situation very quickly. So we have to use Martech in a way that justifies every pound we spend. So for us, it's definitely a focus on multi-touch, where we can really optimize our budgets to drive better results. It's also preparing the organization and the marketing department for AI. You know, we're using AI at the minute, but in terms of how we maximize that with agents and all of those workflows, we need to get the organization ready, but as well the data. So that's where we're focusing on, you know, a customer data platform as well. all of AI and any agents that we use will depend on how good the data is, and if it's fragmented and it's not normalized, it's going to cause us much more difficulty in the future. So those two are massive focus for us. And on the wish list for me would be buyer intent platforms. So actually trying to see, I feel like Marketo Measure and through Dynamic Chat and Marketo Engage, we're getting this real engaged picture of what people are doing. But those anonymous visitors, I think, is an opportunity to maximize return on investment. So something around buyer intent and surfacing visibility of unknown users to your website and the company would be worth investing in as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Neil, coming back to you, I'm just wondering if you kind of look back at any decisions that have been made in terms of adoption of new technology, and maybe you would do something different now that you're looking back. I don't know if you've got any examples like that you can share.
Yeah. In previous life, I had a totally different business where we were looking at evolving our stack. And so I pulled together a small Scrum, so basically a hustle team. So myself, solution architect, a developer. And soon what we quickly realized was between just the three of us, we didn't have enough user cases to build out a robust strategy. And so that's really important, really thinking about those user cases and how that informs what you want to do, especially if you're not necessarily iterating, but you're creating something new. And that was a lesson because, as soon as we then brought in, and that point we partnered up with consultancy, we were able to then create a really clear roadmap. And I had to make that decision pretty quick. So it was a month delay. But nonetheless, that gave us a really robust roadmap to then bring in and iterate the tech stack. So that was definitely a learning. I'm not saying you can't be agile and you can't work with small scrums, but really think about and pick your battles in terms of when you want to do that versus when you want to bring in a consultancy or a key partner to help evolve that, because that partner would have worked across other areas of businesses, across multiple different businesses as well. And a lot of different user cases would have been developed off the back of that. That can certainly help with then informing your own roadmap.
Brilliant. That's a great example, I think. And again, sometimes it's good to get advice, right? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and it's hard to be ahead of everything when you're inside the business and looking at what you're doing with a really close lens, right? Okay, we've got the Q&A open, so please feel free to go and put your questions in. And please add any thoughts or questions that maybe you want to go back over some stuff that was in there before or was mentioned before. You want to dig into sort of comment that was made, feel free to throw that in. And importantly, I'm going to kind of ask a quick question whilst people are throwing their questions in. And this is something I've been kicking around in my head, listening to all these examples of whether there's a preference of build it, buy it, or try and find if we've already got it. So we'll go around the table, and Charlie, I'm going to put you on the spot first to answer that question.
Like Neil, I've had previous lives, and I've always wanted to consolidate my stack. I do like a simplified consolidated stack. It makes for easier integrations, easier landscape, fewer vendors to deal with, easier budget lines. I'm a great believer in optimizing what you already have, right? Not building something from scratch, and then, as I said earlier in my answer, not having that sort of knowledge within the team and single points of failure. I find that, like Scott Brinker's map, there's a lot of tech out there that does the same job again and again. I prefer to optimize, to keep with what I already have, and then to get the fullest out of that and push the vendor as hard as I can to make sure that it's feature rich for the future.
Brilliant. Zoe, we'll come to you next.
Yeah, very similar actually. So I would always look at what we've already got first. You know, there's less upkeep, normally less skills because people don't have to learn something new. And you've already got that user engagement with it and confidence in that platform. So definitely I would look to something that we already have first. We bought a new platform recently and we then had another requirement, but we've gone to them and say, hey, do you have this capability? Can you add this on? And, you know, I think it's better to work with the vendors that you already have if it's in that area.
Neil, over to you now.
Yeah, we iterate. And it does mean then we can have a really good audit on what the gaps are. So leveraging what we've got creates and then when we do the audit, we know what works and actually what we can benchmark against what's being promised if we want to bring in an evolved part of the stack, be it moving from, let's say, Drift to Marketo web or web chat, then at least we've figured out what we can integrate through our APIs and then what the gaps are. And then we can then see against the business case, is it going to, again, it's about resource. I mean, it takes a village, and do we then want to bring in that resource to effectively evolve the program? And we got to look at the business case for that and what the outcome's going to be.
Fantastic. And Jackie?
Yeah, buy. Do not build. I speak from recent experience of, we had demos maybe 6 months ago of a platform and we thought we could build it ourselves. So we started to form a group together and get the requirements and actually then delve into the systems and connections. And, you know, you worry about putting that cost towards the C-suite and say, I want to procure this platform and it costs this much. But actually, if you try to build it, you know, if you work out how much your salary is and how much everybody on that team salary day rate is, you can actually put together a counter case that actually, if we tried to build this internally, it's really going to cost us quite similar amounts here in terms of internal resource. So definitely buy. Don't waste time on it.
And there's a great mix of opinions there in the chat as well, firing away. Some people saying buy, some people saying utilize what's there already, and other people giving some opinions around actually it's really hard to sometimes utilize existing technology and scale it beyond. I'm being also told that the questions have been answered in the chat, so there's not anything specific to bring up unless there's any questions from the audience that are to be wrapped up. I will pass back to you, Charlie, and get through our final slides.
Brilliant. Look, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining the panel. Really do appreciate it. And like James said in the chat, if you want to be a speaker or a panelist in the future, please get in touch with Lena, James, or I. You can also speak to Zoe Foreman. She's not fallen off the edge of the earth. But let me just finish up sort of the last 10 minutes. I've got a few updates from Marketo. I've thrown in a couple of links to some of those ahead of the slides, particularly on that new email designer. I know that's been a hot topic in the chat. So first of all, what's coming up? If I can get there we go. So this meeting, hey, you all made it. So welcome. But we do have, if you are coming from further afield, there are hundreds of chapters for Marketo right across the globe. It is by far the largest of all the different communities within Adobe. So you can get involved virtually as well as in person. There's lots of in-person events. So for example, for those joining in the UK, there is the London Mug, which happens about once every sort of quarter. And there are lots across Europe, including Amsterdam and in Germany as well. So please do go to the website, find your local chapter. Obviously join this one. We also share a lot of European chapters as well. One new one, this might be worth finding about. We did talk a little bit in our discussion today about getting started with that knowledge in Marketo. A new user group has been set up talking about foundations. So getting to the basics of Marketo and using that. It's actually run by a few of my friends in the Champ network. So you'll get all of their experience of getting started into Marketo, some tips and tricks, as well as learning Marketo for the first time. So please do follow that. I will get the links out if you're not quick enough to get the QR codes afterwards. New email designer. I know it's been a great hot topic, and I think, James, maybe the next Marketo user group for EMEA should be about that new email designer. Tips and tricks, things that we found. I've shared a bug that is known to me on the new email designer. So it would be great to get others across and sharing their experiences in that. This office hours set up by Adobe will help answer a lot of those questions. So please do join that. That's a virtual event. And then also, there's some tips and tricks there on, how to use the platform as an admin. So what else is new? So loads of new things coming through from Adobe on Marketo, the platform itself, across all of its B2B technology platforms as well as the Experience League. So Experience League used to be Marketo Nation. There's loads of new great content coming through, and I had actually the honor of being the guy behind all of the content that gets put up and the learning paths that get put up into the Experience League. And they have been hard at it for the past year, getting new videos up there, new blogs from champions and from others on different perspectives on using Marketo and use cases, and new learning paths as well. So please do get yourself across to there, register. It's all free, and there's some fantastic content to help you and your teams as well, particularly if you're selling Adobe technology into the business. And I know, again, that was another point that we covered. What else is new? Well, we've got new technology within the Marketo B2B stack. So real-time CDP, the B2B as well as B2P editions, and as well as Adobe Journey Optimizer for B2B as well. So there are brand new sessions where you can learn all about those platforms, learn from users as well as from Adobe themselves. They'll take you through exactly how some of the features as well as some of the workflows in those new platforms. We've got analytics coming up. That's definitely worth joining. CJA, Customer Journey Analytics, so many acronyms, is a great tool. Fantastic features if you're looking to plot that, particularly in the B2B space, B2C edition as well. It will show you exactly your sort of touch points and journey funnel all the way through. And of course, you've got AEM and Marketo, a platform called Marketo coming up as well as Workfront. So please do join those. User groups. User groups, actually, I talked about there being loads of Marketo ones. AEP, or Adobe Experience Platform. I think this year there's an AEP champion program. So hopefully when I get there again in San Francisco this fall, it would be great to sort of meet some of those guys. But if you are users of AEP, then please do get involved in local chapters. If there's not one in your region within EMEA, please do think about starting one up. If you have experience in a platform, give back into that community by starting to share stories, share use cases, share best practices and tips, and also pitfalls as well. So if you want to nominate yourself, there's an email address here, as well as an interest form if you want to start up that new chapter. Again, James Lena will get these links out so you can sort of pick through those. It is worth getting involved in running a chapter such as the one you've joined today. You get to insight into the roadmap as well as latest developments and access to some of the product folk at Adobe as well. So it's definitely worth getting involved with. And then finally, Adobe love feedback. We are quite a noisy bunch. I think in the Adobe space, we tell Adobe exactly what we think about platforms like Marketo, but they're constantly looking for feedback on the platform. So give that feedback, first of all, to your customer success manager, and they'll pass that on to the product team. And then secondly, share how you feel about Adobe Marketo on G2 and platforms like TrustRadius as well. It's important that you do, help and give back what you think, sharing the best bits and some of the bad bits to help obviously improve the platform. But when you share the best bits about something like Adobe Marketo in particular, it helps then others like you coming into the space understand what works for them, what works for you too. So look, that's the sort of the last of the slides. James, should we bring this sort of panel meeting to a close?
Yes, again, just a massive thank you for everybody dedicating a bit of time. Again, these are all community run events, so everybody's giving their time for free. They don't get paid for them. And so done through passion for sharing insights and being part of the community. So again, thank you very much. And this is the farewell for Zoe as she leaves our European VMUG as part of our hosts to become a member and a participant, hopefully, as she goes to her new adventure.
Yes, I'm actually stepping the other
Thank
side.
you very much.
Thank you. I'm stepping into Adobe, so I will see some of you on the other side. I will have an EMEA role, so if I don't see you through work, definitely webinars or the upcoming summit. Hopefully, see you in London in person or other events around the world.
And then
it's been a pleasure, and good luck to Lena. You're in good hands.
And before we break, Lena, I'd love you to just introduce yourself. Obviously, you'll be helping us on the next one in September.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I've met some of you before, and I'm looking forward to meeting more of you. Great opportunity to be part of the MUG. I'm looking forward to it. And I've been using Marketo for probably about 10 years in different roles and stuff. So, quite different capacities at different places. But looking forward to it. I currently work at Brown Brothers Harriman, asset manager. Quite risk averse, and so we don't use the functionality as we probably should be. So exciting to learn from you as well as share what I can as well. Look forward to seeing you all soon.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for your time. This recording will go up in the next 24 hours, and the slides will be available as well, and we'll get those links out to you pretty swiftly. Thanks to everybody in the panel. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.